Hey everybody, in this video and in the next few we're going to talk about solving quadratic equations. So we're going to do this a few different ways in each different video, but we're going to start with graphing. So this first question, we're going to graph our function f of x equals x squared minus 4. And so I set up an xy table right here, and all we have to do is plug in some numbers for x, find y, and plot some points. So remember, y is the same thing as f of x. So I start in the middle. I'm going to put 0 in the middle because when I plug in 0 into my function over here, that x component is 0. Okay, I'll show you on the next question why that's important, why it makes it easier to graph. So 0 squared minus 4 is negative 4. Okay, let's move on to 1. If I plug in 1 squared minus 4 is negative 3. Moving on to 2 squared minus 4 is 0. Now, why I picked 0 to be in the middle of the table is because I'm going to get symmetry when I do that in this example. If you plug in negative 1 and square it and subtract 4, you're going to get negative 3. If you plug in negative 2, square it, and subtract 4, you're going to get 0. So notice the symmetry on our table. This 0, negative 4 is actually going to be our vertex. Okay, so now if we plot those points, let's see, we have 0, negative 4 down here. We have 1, negative 3 right there, 2 zeros right there, and then moving on to the other side of the vertex, and we form our parabola shape. Okay, so this question is about solving quadratic equations, and so what we want to do really is answer part C, but let's answer part B first. So where does the graph intersect the x-axis? And so it's right here and right here. So we want to answer that in terms of x. It intersects the x-axis when x is negative 2 as well as when x is positive 2. And so now what that's going to allow us to do is to answer this question, part C, really quickly. So this question is saying, when is x squared minus 4 equal to 0? Well, that's the same thing as if we were to replace y with 0. So back up here to our function, f of x is y, or it's just setting that equal to 0. Okay, and so y is 0 at those 2 points we just circled. And so the answer, we don't even have to do any more work. X equals negative 2 and also x equals positive 2, and you can just put them together with a comma. And so that's solving a quadratic equation with the graph. So let's try another one. Okay, so down here we have f of x equals x minus 3 squared minus 1. And so now notice my table this time. I went ahead and put 3 as the center value of my xy table. And here's why. When you go back up to your function and you plug in 3, it's going to make the quantity with x, this part in the parentheses, 0. So that's how you would pick what to put in the middle of your table, and that will give you symmetry for parabolas when you fill in your x and y table. So if I plug in 3, minus 3, and square it, I'm going to get 0, and then take away 1, we get minus 1. Then let's plug in 4. 4 minus 3 squared is 1, and then minus 1 is 0. 5 minus 3 is 2, squared is 4, minus 1 is 3. Okay, and so now if I jump to the other side of my number that I put in the middle of my table, if I plug in 2, I'll just write it out over here. 2 minus 3 is negative 1. So then if I square that, I get 1, and then subtracting the 1 in the back, I'm back to 0 again. Notice the symmetry is happening along the xy table. And if you plug in 1, you're going to get 3 again, just like you did down here when we plugged in 5. Okay, so now we plot those points, and let's see what we get. So 3, negative 1, 4, 0, 5, 3, 2, 0, and 1, 3. And we'll draw our parabola, and then we can answer the question, where does the graph intersect the x-axis? Well, right here and right here. Okay, so when is that going to occur? We have x equals 2, and the second one was at x equals 4. And so moving down to the real question about solving this quadratic equation, we have to solve this equation when it equals 0. But remember, that's the same thing as setting this function equal to 0, or asking when is y 0, which was the 2 points we circled. And so we don't even have to do anything extra. We already solved by looking at the graph. So when x is 2 and when x is 4, this function equals 0. Okay, and so these points, actually, if I write them as an ordered pair, just so you're aware, 2, 0 and 4, 0, we call these the x-intercepts of our graph up here. It's where you hit the x-axis. It's also where y is 0, or when your function is 0. And that's how you would solve graphically. So in the next video, over the course of the next few, we're going to solve by factoring, using the square root property, completing a square, and then our last method will be to use the quadratic formula. And just for fun, I'm actually going to solve this same equation every way that I just mentioned. So you can see sometimes one method might be easier than the next method, depending on what the equation looks like to start with. Okay, that's it for this one. See you in the next video.